Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and today I am doing a Paizo Pathfinder 2nd Edition Game Mastery Guide flip through. So let's get started. Alright, so recently I've started getting into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I've been reading the core rulebook. I like what I read, so I purchased the Game Mastery Guide as well as the first bestiary. Now, I'm sure in the future, depending on what I think of these, I will probably purchase the Advanced Player's Guide. I will probably purchase a couple more bestiaries, and who knows, maybe I'll even jump in on the Lost Omens game line. But this is all about the Game Mastery Guide. So let's just look at this, and as I'm flipping through it, I will tell you what I've read, what I think about it, things like that. But for the most part, this is going to be as quick as possible to give you guys an idea if you want to purchase this product as well. So, opening the book. Again, they do a great job up front with their index, their table of contents. I really like how it just shows you the art of the book. It shows you the different sections. I think it's really helpful. I just love Pathfinder's art in general. Paizo does a great job in the art department. Wayne Reynolds is great. They have a lot of other great artists, and I'm a big fan of it. So reading the front of the book, it's basically telling you that Pathfinder is your toolbox to use it however you wish. Goes into some basic advice, and I think it's pretty good. It's in here. It's talking about the pacing, session 0, stakes and consequences. It's telling you things that, in some cases, at this point, if you watch my YouTube channel, I've talked about a lot of these things. You also have probably seen it on other channels. There's good stuff in here. There really is. Now, it is very general information up front here. Some of it is just really good in general. NPC betrayal, things like that, metagaming, secret checks, which is something I sometimes do anyway. I thought that was cool. I really like it. So, failing forward, which I've done videos on that before. I did like this false information section. I thought that was pretty good. I like, hero points. I've got ideas in my head about how to use hero points. In my games, I always call them story points. I use them in my D&D games and things like that. Running encounters. So there's some stuff in here that, again, is very Pathfinder specific. In fact, this book up front, I'm just going to tell you, if you're buying this because you really liked the first edition Game Mastery Guide, don't expect that stuff in this book. It's not the same. In fact, it's vastly different. So, I had heard a while back when somebody I knew had bought this and they were talking about it and they were disappointed with this. I'm not, I'll be honest. As somebody who's getting into Pathfinder, I think this is actually a really good book for 2nd edition Pathfinder. But if you're getting into this book because you want to take things from this and apply it to other games, if you're fine with only using a handful of things for a different system, that's fine. Then maybe this is still for you. But if you're hoping to get tables upon tables of stuff, like in the 1st edition one, well, that's probably not going to happen. So, I already use the uniform diagonals. Yeah, I don't do the 5-10, 5-10 thing when I'm using a grid. I just, for sake of simplicity, every square is 5 feet, whether it's diagonal or straight. That's how I play, just because I don't want to get bogged down with worrying about, well, did you use your movement correctly? I don't care. And I have had players still try to cheat and move an extra square, and I've caught them doing it multiple times, and it's not because they're forgetting. They've purposely tried to cheat. So there is that aspect. So, but there were some good things in here about like things to think about. For example, under aquatic combat, mounted combat, there's some good stuff in here for that. Unexpected difficulty. It's kind of telling you here how to adjust things on the fly sometimes, or if you should. Running exploration. For me, this is something I'm trying to work on in my own personal games because I feel like my games get a little stale with travel. I'm not comfortable with dealing with travel in my games while maintaining an interesting tone. That's something I'm working on. But it does have some really nice descriptions on how to handle different settings or different environmental details right there. Scenes within exploration, which I am starting to try and adapt a more scene-focused prep. And I think that'll help me as well moving forward. Hazards, investigations, getting lost, interesting stuff there. Surprise attacks. You can see I was going back to read the running downtime. I have not read this whole book though. I've read everything before this, and I've read bits and pieces of everything else throughout here, but not every word. So running downtime, again, this is mostly specific to Pathfinder, how they do it. Now you could take little tidbits from here. You might even be able to take some of the system from here and apply it to other games if you want. But if you're trying to apply this to something else, you might want to see if that system has its own rules for it. But again, you can take some ideas and inspiration out of this if you want. Tasks and events. So for example, say you want to buy and sell items. The PC sells an item of interest to members of a particular group who pursue the PC. Merchant sells the PC a fraudulent item. Like, it's just telling you different things you can do in downtime. And, I feel like I'd rather role play it out in a lot of instances. However, there are ways to not do it with role playing it out, which is kind of what they talk about a little bit here. Because it's, a lot of times they tell you to resolve it one-on-one, things like that. So at least that was my interpretation of reading some stuff. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong. I don't know. PCs can buy what they want, where they want. So again, this is stuff that I don't necessarily do in my games. I sometimes restrict what you can buy and where it is, whether you're in a town or a city. There's like a percentage chance. If you want to barter price, if I want to deal with bartering price, I'll sometimes let players do it. Talks about making money in downtime, investments, retraining. So in the core rule book, you can retrain. So your primary responsibility here is to determine the time, instruction, cost, blah, blah, blah. You can run a campaign without retraining if you want the PCs to be more bound by their decisions or are running a game without downtime. So say you take something you don't want. This is the idea that you can retrain that option into something else. This also applies to, say, at 3rd level, you took this feat. At 6th level, you take this feat. But you really want this different feat now that you're available to get all 6th level feats. So you want to get rid of the 3rd one, and now you'll have 2 6th. That would be a retraining thing. So again, you kind of got to be careful, though, as a DM or GM, to not allow your players to get too OP, personally. Personally, I don't care that much. Especially, it feels like in Pathfinder, as players get more OP, it's not that big a deal. This feels far more balanced than 1st edition. Adjudicating rules, looking up rules, which is something I actually don't like to do, but at the same time, I feel tied to the rules. So this is something I am hoping when I start running Pathfinder 2nd edition, I can just give this to somebody else. Like, hey, you are responsible. If a rule comes up in game that we don't know, you're responsible to look it up. I like to have somebody I can defer to. Listen to your players. Basically siding with what the players want, kind of thing, or what they feel for the tone is important. Make a call is big. Make time for review, so in between sessions sometimes, or maybe if there's downtime in the middle of a session. Yes, but house rules. Be careful with your house rules. I've said that before. I play around with rules a lot. I very rarely use my house rules in games. And I always run it by my group. If they hate it, I try not to force it on them. Resolving problems. So I haven't read this, but I'm interested to see what they say about TPKs. Problematic players, I think, is a very case-by-case basis, but the first thing they always say is talk to them about it. That's like pretty much always, communication is always the first thing they basically imply. Cheating, safety tools. So X-Card, if you guys have not checked it out yet, go check out Monty Cook's Consent in Gaming. It's a great little PDF. It's free, and I encourage everybody who runs games to do that, especially if you're just getting into RPGs, because you can trigger people in some pretty unfortunate ways that you don't necessarily want to trigger. Like, so I would definitely consider checking that PDF out. But this book, and even the core book for Paizo's Pathfinder 2nd edition, does talk about this a little, so that is good. Power imbalances. Narrative collaboration. I'm very big on players being able to add to the story in a lot of ways. So that's important to me. Story points. You can give players a number of story points at the start of each session. They can cash these in to determine what happens next in the story. I like that. Special circumstances, unusual group sizes, small, large. I'm kind of wanting to try Pathfinder Society with this. I'm sure there's some online Pathfinder Society games going on right now. I should probably look into that. We're going to be playing on July 11th here. A one-shot, which is going to be a Pathfinder Society scenario with a Pathfinder Society GM. But we're not playing by Pathfinder Society rules. It's not like building us points for Pathfinder Society or anything. It's just an adventure for that. All right. Player needs sensory differences, attention span. I play with kids sometimes, my kids, so that's a big one. Rarity in your game. The 4 rarities. Common, uncommon, rare, unique. World building. All right, campaign structure. So this is a good section too that I've briefly read some stuff. I think, again, if you are a brand new GM, this is going to be good stuff for you. You should probably read through this book and figure out what you want to run. And this talks about different styles of games. Like the epic campaign is what I'm into. I'm really into that. Not necessarily because I care about getting to level 20, but I care about getting to a point where you're saving the world on a global scale. But starting small and just, eventually feeling like your characters are strong. I like that. Reoccurring villains, power level, villain goals, changing the world. Rewards. The rewards in this, there's some interesting things that I'm about to get to in the pages that I think are kind of cool. But yeah, it talks about treasure, selling items. Ooh, starting the campaign. I know I've had this asked me, how do you start a new campaign? I actually struggle at first, especially if I've never played with the group before. I come up with ideas for a campaign and I scratch them and throw it away. And then I come up with a new one. Like I'll have a group that I'm about to play with, say a week from now. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be the campaign. And then I'll be like, nope. And I scratch it out and throw it away. And I start new prep notes and then I do it again. I do that like sometimes 2-3 times before I get into it. And I like to play quick, short adventures early on and then lead up to ultimately what the campaign's going to be by like session 3. So I try to come up with something that can be resolved in a session or 2 early on, such as, the town needs help with something moderately small because it's a little bit more than a commoner can handle. And then we get into it. But I do that to try and gauge what my players like up front. So ending the campaign, I have never had a campaign end. I've never had it come to completion, I should say. I've had them end abruptly quite a bit, but never made it to the finish of a campaign, unfortunately. And I chalk that up to moving on average about once a year in the last 10 years. Dealing with failure. The next campaign. Adventure design. So again, good stuff here. Player motivations, which again, obviously I do a session 0, but then after a session or 2, I start getting ideas for that, for my own. So that's important. Keeping it varied, I think, is important too. I do a better job in one-shots of doing that. In a campaign, I tend to have to remind myself to do certain things because I'll get into the flow and start doing things, and I'll leave out let's do puzzles, or I forgot to really focus on a lot of traps, or solving mysteries or whatever. I don't, that's stuff I got to remind myself about. Styles. So again, this is good. It even tells you number of sessions, 6 to 8. So this is I don't know. I feel like it's structuring how you want a campaign to go, or a section of a campaign to go here. Obviously these are short things a high adventure would be 6 to 8. Horror 1 or 2. Dungeon crawl 3 to 4. Intrigue 2 to 3. And it tells you how to lay out your scenes. I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this. Personally, this is a part where you, no matter what game you're running, can get some stuff out of here. Because again, it's not telling you these are stats, use these. It's just giving you an idea of what you want to put in there to keep you conscious of what you're doing. Planar adventure, cool stuff here. Corruption, devastation. So these are different kinds of threats. Extremism, mayhem, subjugation, motivation, story arcs. building a sandbox. NPCs and organizations. Mechanics. So again, you're getting into the mechanics of the game. They do a good job of referring to different pages for what you're looking for as well. I do like that. And that is throughout this. I do kind of wish this was in other games, other books for other games. Because it'll say refer to blah, 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 but then it won't give you a page number. I hate that. Encounter design. So again, it talks about like maps, like how you want to, do it. Budgeting for terrain, wild weather, enemy motivations. If you just like reading about RPGs, I guess you could get a lot out of this book. If you're newer to RPGs, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Oh, this is cool. Quick adventure groups. Now, again, this is based on Pathfinder. You're not going to want to take necessarily the XP or how many guys to throw into an encounter for another system. But, it might still be helpful. Treasure by encounter. So again, this is total treasure per level. Your first level party should get 175 gold worth of treasure before they level up. Like, that's interesting to me. And this is how you determine to get it. So within that 175, you're going to throw in so many encounters that are going to equal up to these. And maybe, maybe you lump them all in. So you're going to have a bunch of low-level encounters that don't give you any, but you just, in your head, keep a tally and then add it all up and then throw in like some really extreme encounter with a dragon. Boom. So then it's 35 plus all the stuff from there, So that's how you would roughly do it. Opponent synergy. I believe this is the part where they talk about combinations that can be really deadly. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's good. Drawing a map. I glossed over this. I didn't actually pay much attention to it. Create a legend is the first step, which I thought was interesting because that's usually the last thing I do. I usually just make my map and do the art that I think I would need to represent what I'm thinking. And then at the end, I might make a legend for myself. But sometimes I don't even make a legend, Tool. So this is where you start getting into some interesting stuff here. Encounters. I believe it talks about like reskinning and stuff here soon, which is a big thing that I do a lot. Or just making some minor tweaks to an existing monster. Reskinning up there. Talks about what the rough modifiers would be of the monster by level, depending on if it's extreme, high, moderate, or low. Tells you what types of monsters. So you might have a brutish monster, you might have a spellcaster, and it kind of tells you there what that means and how to do that. Perception checks, skill checks. So this is like what I think it was what type of items you might give to your monsters. So, level 6 creature would have 2 + 1 weapons, is my understanding. So again, there's some cool tables in here for that. Armor class, which I was looking at this. So armor class for magic items from treasure that's not for treasure. Is treasure back here? Maybe it's further ahead. They definitely weight armor class over attacks, like damage and to hit. So I thought that was interesting. This was like damage and to hit for your monsters based on level. Spell DCs based on level. So again, it would be very easy to balance a encounter using these charts. And just make a quick monster by fluff and then just taking the numbers from here. Very easy, actually. These are trait abilities for monsters. Not abilities, but just traits. So, like, the trait you'll see on top of, like, I don't know, a hill giant would be giant, and then that means it's larger, bigger, humanoid. Senses, low light vision. Languages, usually Jotun. Swarm, like all sorts of interesting things here. Again, the traits are really important in this game for Pathfinder. That's a lot of rules and things are associated with those traits. So here it is, designing NPCs. Similar to the stuff before, but like yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's getting into some stuff here. Like, it's not necessary to assign every skill feat, particularly for a high level NPC. You can just pick the most emblematic ones and gloss over the rest. So I would probably use the charts from before if you really need to use like stats for them. But for the most part, I wouldn't even worry about it if you're designing NPCs. Most of the time, nothing's going to happen. But again, if you have those charts from before in front of you somehow, just on some loose leaf paper, maybe you've written down your party's third level, so you make your own chart up to third level based on the stuff before. And then anytime they come across something that needs to be done, now you can quickly refer to the stats on the charts. It'd be a lot easier. This is just an overview telling you what the characters get from classes. So a sorcerer, these are the, what is it, the skills and stuff? Yeah, this is like the basics, but then the abilities over here. Bloodline, really, and it's by level. So it tells you roughly what they get. It's kind of cool. I don't know if they gave you this because they want you to apply that to NPCs quickly. I don't know. It had me scratching my head. But anyways, building hazards. Again, it's by level. Some of these charts, like looking at them, can seem very overwhelming if you're not familiar with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Like, I'll be honest, I don't know what EAC, HAC, LAC means. I mean, it's armor class, but I don't know what the E, the H, the L stands for. Yeah, EHL. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. It probably says it right on this page, too. Yeah. So I know that pursued by EHL, as well as its hardness. I get that. AC. So the hazard's AC, fortitude save, and reflex save. Okay, but what does EHL mean? I don't even know. Again, I'm learning the system still, so it's a little confusing. I understand the broken threshold, and I get that, and the hardness. I don't know. Whatever. I'll figure it out someday. Or you guys can let me know in the comments below what E, H, and L mean. Maybe it's so simple to understand, and I'm just not getting it. Anyways, again, more. So the hazards are kind of cool. I was reading through them. There's some pretty cool ones in here. And again, you could take these and reskin them for your game of choice, but there's not like a good conversion necessarily from this game to another game. So you're just going to have to not wing it, but like you can get ideas, I guess is where I'm at. Building items. So it's talking about mundane items. It talks about getting into some like magical stuff a little bit here. Things like that. So scaling. So one of the cool things in this book is the scalable magical items. And we're going to get into that really soon here, but there's some nice stuff in here. See, I love that art. I actually really like their Dwarf Ranger too. Item quirks. That's cool. I don't even remember seeing this until just now. So that's cool. Intelligent items talks about how they won't necessarily do what you want. They might turn off their abilities on you at times if you're not paying attention to them and their needs. Cursed items. I don't know how Pathfinder 2nd Edition handles cursed items yet, so I need to do some more reading on that. Because I know in another popular game system, I struggle with that. I like to, every now and then, usually about once in a campaign, I like to throw in a couple cursed items or a cursed item. And unfortunately, it's basically impossible to do so without the players knowing. All right, relics. This is really cool. So these grow alongside you. Now, I had asked what people's favorite things about this book were in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Facebook page or Facebook group, and this one came up a few times. And I see why. It's basically a really powerful magical item that levels up with your players, kind of. I like it. The idea of this is really cool. Now, you can probably give it to your players as they start the campaign. Just say, hey, what would be one really cool item that you think we could work into your backstory that you start with? It could be a sword. It could be whatever, right? And then it's going to get stronger as the players get stronger. But this is where the stuff is. So you get like these little, yeah, these are like the little things you can have, right? So Deadly Spark. Command, interact. Spark flashes out from the relic toward a creature within 20 feet. This spark Deals 1d12 electricity damage, basic reflex save. The damage increases by 1d12 at 6th level, and by another 1d12 every 4 levels thereafter. And it's a minor gift. So you wouldn't necessarily start with the Deadly Spark, but you might get that at 4th level. You know what I mean? To go along with your regular stuff. So it's just really cool. It does take 2 actions to activate something like that right here. Now, I want to say, wasn't it, you have to, like here it is talking about runes as gift. I think you can apply runes to your items to make them better. I think that's the idea. And I want to say these are the runes, but maybe I'm wrong. I have to reread this. But yeah, it's cool. There's cool stuff in here. I think this is going to be a fun thing to put into games, whether it's Pathfinder 2nd Edition or another game. But again, you're going to have to really, like for other games, it's going to take a lot of mental gymnastics, as I always hear people say. So, and I know there's other systems. In fact, I reviewed a third-party product for another game system called like Ancestral Weaponry or something. It's a similar concept. Artifacts. Artifacts you can't create. They're like your iconic magical items, such as Deck of Many Things. But you can find them. I was reading up on the Horns of Noraga, and I really liked that. That would be a cool item to give a group for various reasons. Not necessarily good for the players. I did read up on the sword here, Serithtial. I liked that right up. Gems and art objects. So again, now you're getting into just, hey, here's some stuff you can give your party, for gold, in place of gold. Afflictions, curses. Again, Sword of Anathema, I thought was kind of cool too. There's the plague guy, the plague doctor. All right, drugs. So you can give drugs. I don't remember seeing this in the previous editions books, but that's kind of cool that you could do something like that. Was that Elven Absinthe? It is Elven Absinthe. Specialists in Keonan prepare this emerald green beverage. What's it do? +2 item bonus to diplomacy and performance checks. Interesting. Okay. Cool stuff there. Building worlds, mapping your world. Civilization. One of the things about Pathfinder 2 that's kind of interesting is they focus heavily on Golarion for this. I was surprised in the core rulebook there was so much about that, and I understand why. Pathfinder is built around their setting for the most part, and I like that they are focused on that. I do like that, even though I probably won't run or play a lot of games in Golarion. For me, I'll probably play in more than I run there. But for me, I like to use stuff from my homebrew world, and there's a lot of things I can use as inspiration. I don't feel like there's anything I'm necessarily going to rip straight from Pathfinder's setting of Golarion, but there are a lot of things that could influence my ideas, things like that. I believe these two characters just got married, according to their blog. I think they did a write-up on it. I only read part of it, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. All right, more cool stuff through here. Again, we're still talking about like the world and things. Demiplanes, subsystems. All right, so here's stuff that people have talked about as well. So like victory points, influence, research chases, infiltration, reputation, duels, leadership, exploration, and vehicles. That's really cool right here. That's awesome. That's some nice art. All right, victory points. Naming your victory points. Victory point subsystem structures. Interesting. Obstacles, DC, setting your scale. So I don't even know what victory points are. I don't even know what they're claiming it as. You'll often find that your games could use a way to track progress toward a goal so that you don't have to just keep everything in your head. This section explains how to build your own subsystems for tracking success via victory points. Many other subsystems throughout the chapter use these as well, though often by a different name. Oh, okay. So it's like currency to help your group work towards different goals or different things. That's cool. A quick encounter will give you 3 to 5 victory points, whereas an adventure-wide forefront will give you 25 to 30. Rewards. How you structure rewards for your subsystem depends greatly on its topic. A subsystem resolved in a single sitting usually gives accomplishment XP. Oh, okay, but it's telling you this could be used for other things. So maybe type of ruler the PC's patron will become based on the PC's decisions. You might not give XP directly from the subsystem, since that case... okay. So yeah, it's telling you could use it to, like, influence, sway with some characters. I mean, I guess you got influence here, but it's kind of saying you could do it there. Interesting stuff. I don't know. This might be a cool little section to read. Chases. Chases are interesting. They don't happen in any of my games. Very rarely. Unless I have an enemy retreat and then the players think they're going to get information out of them. That's always kind of funny. Obstacles. Underground obstacles. Ooh, wilderness. So you might have deep mud. Ooh, I like that. I really like that. Okay, so it sounds like their chase scenes are fleshed out pretty well. Infiltration. Like, there's some good systems in here for things other than combat, it seems. I have a friend who's talked about Pathfinder 2nd edition, and he says it's basically a system for combat, but I think they do a much better job than some other games working around that. Like, okay, forging documents. Like, that's actually a thing in one of their core books. I don't know. I think their core books definitely lend themselves towards some interesting role play, interesting skill usage, creative ways around things other than just killing things. And so I think it could be a good system, for a long time. Leadership. Ooh, base of operations. There we go. This is like running a stronghold. That's like a throwback to some old school stuff. I do know Kingmaker's coming out soon too. Not soon, but it's coming out again for Pathfinder 2nd edition. So that's cool. Hex maps. Good stuff. I actually have a hex map generator thing that I got from Drive-Thru RPG a while back. And like you can do all sorts of stuff with it. Like it's got different map tiles and you can do different things with it. I've used it for my homebrew world map in smaller areas before, and it's been nice. It's nice to be able to say, here players, I made this in like 20 minutes, but it represents your area you're in. Random encounters, types of terrain. That was all for the maps. Vehicle stuff. So this is cool. I'm glad in their core books, unlike other games, they put this in here. So that's kind of nice. Tells you how to handle them. Reckless piloting. Broken vehicles. Sample vehicles. Airship. Carriage, cart, galley, chariot. Glider. Rowboat. Sailing ship. Sleigh. Wagon. Steam giant. I'm assuming a steam giant's like a train. Interesting. Variant rules. So ability score variants. One of my favorite things about 2nd edition Pathfinder is how you determine your ability scores. So I like that. I'm interested to see what some of the variants are. Alignment, deep backgrounds, feats and features, level 0 characters, magic item variants, proficiency without level, skill points, and stamina. So I can see how some of these could get really out of hand quickly. I don't worry too much about alignments in my games. I know that 2nd edition still refers to paladins as lawful, things like that. And I hate that, to be honest. I hate alignment. I think it's very restrictive, and I don't think it's accurate for how people are in real life. There's shades of gray. There's, different levels of morality. There's all sorts of things. What one person thinks is immoral, another person might not. What one person thinks is ethical, another person might not. Or it's situational. It's just all over the place. And I don't think alignment does a good job of covering that stuff. So, Point buy again. decrease starting scores. All of a character's ability scores start at 10. If the PC's ancestry has ability flaws, decrease those ability scores to 8. Yeah, a player can also voluntarily lower any ability score to below 10 to gain more ability points. Okay, but that's... Oh, okay, this is just your step-by-step for point buy. Okay, not worried about that. Increasing scores at higher levels. Alternative scores. Ooh, so they're talking about like combining things. I don't know if I like that. Using I don't know. Alignment variance. So extreme good and evil. I remember reading that. Deep background. So this would be interesting because I like the Ultimate Campaign Guide before. It had some really good background stuff. This kind of does too. You can tie yourself to other characters in the group. Tie yourself to some NPCs. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how this applies in my games. And see if it makes for a more entertaining experience. Feats and features. The dual class characters, we were talking about that in that Pathfinder 2nd Edition group. And a lot of people like that. Especially if like you have 2 players and you want to run a campaign. If you are one of those people who thinks having all the roles, such as a spellcaster like a wizard, a cleric for healing, a rogue for their skills like thieving and stealth and whatever, and then you want like a tank that's 4 main core roles, then you're going to have one player take 2 of them and the other player take the other 2 for dual classing. That doesn't mean like your fighter has to fill the martial role. You could have a barbarian or something. Level 0 characters. So that's kind of interesting too. I wouldn't mind starting a game as level 0. I think that'd be fun. I have not looked at the variants of magical items yet. Well, I have, but I have not read anything here. But I think there's a lot of customization, which is cool. Proficiency without level. So I don't know how this works, but it almost sounds like there's no restrictions. So proficiency rank is made for... Okay, for a more heroic game. For some games, this narrative arc doesn't fit. Such games are about hedging bets in an uncertain and gritty world. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. I don't know. It sounds like it's bringing down the proficiency stuff. Oh, it's not adding your level to it now. Oh, no, I don't like that. No. I thought it was saying, like, hey, when you can choose new skills, you can now double up another one. That would be kind of interesting to me. But then you're going to get some players that are really powerful at some stuff because they're going to go, well, shoot, I'm 4th level. I'm going to bump the one thing up to master as soon as possible. Skill points. Assigning skill points. That's basically what they did in the previous edition, right? Yeah, I don't know. All right, stamina. So I heard this one's cool too. A lot of people said they were interested in trying to use stamina. So that would be interesting to check out as well. Add some feats for it, it looks like. I do love their Barbarian Iconic. I think it's great. NPC gallery. So again, lots of NPC stuff in here. This is all Pathfinder 2e specific, obviously. You know, lots of different things. But it's how I would play. I would just be like, all right, yeah, a burglar is now in the scene. Or I probably wouldn't call it a burglar. I would just say, yeah, a robed figure steps into the bar. You know? Devotees, zealots, prophets, beggar. These are all the downtrodden. Urchins. I don't know. I don't know if an urchin or a beggar is necessarily... I mean, I guess that's how a lot of people refer to them. It is what it is. Explorers / adventurers. Foresters. Healers. There you go. So you don't need a healing role in your party. You just go and find yourself some healers in town. Laborers. Magistrates. Mercenaries. I do like my good group of mercenaries. Mystics. Ooh, there's your necromancer. Interesting stuff right there. Demonologist on the other page. That's kind of cool. Like the outfit. Officers, jailer, guard, watch officer, an executioner, performers, publicans, scholars, seafarers, tradespeople, villains, which anybody in this section can be villains. You don't need just this page. A gang leader. That's an interesting one. And then the glossary and the index. So that is it. Again, I'm going to stick with what I said, that if you want to dive into... I'm so curious to pick that book up too. I still got to finish reading this before I do anything like that. So I'm going to stick to what I said. If you are looking for something for other game systems, I would not buy this book. The first edition book, I would still recommend for that if you're looking for help, with prep, you love all the tables. The first edition Game Mastery Guide is perfect. Second edition Game Mastery Guide is great if you're going to run Pathfinder 2nd edition. That's it. So that's all my recommendation is. I will have a link to this product down in the comments. It'll be the first pinned link. I will also have it in the description. It is an Amazon link. I will get commission for that. I don't know how much it is. It's probably only pennies, but if you decide to buy it through that link, I would greatly appreciate it because it does help my channel out. If you are new to the channel, I do have a Patreon. If you want to help support further things like this, I like to do this about once a week if I can. This is something I used to do a long time ago, and I got away from it, and now I kind of want to get back to it because I just enjoy, showing you guys a preview of something before you buy it. Especially right now, since a lot of game stores aren't open for you to walk into, it just seems perfect that, hey, I can let you see it without buying it, and then that way you can make the decision for yourself. So this is not a review, but this is more like a preview for people who haven't bought it yet. So with that, please smash that subscribe button, give me a like, and if anyone asks about the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide, think about sharing this with them. This was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.